Hi everyone, my name is Adri and welcome back to the Lazy Arts channel. In today's video, I will show you how to sew buttonholes and buttons at home with a household sewing machine. As always, there are timestamps in the description, so you can jump to the part that you came here for. And if you like my videos and don't want to miss out on new ones, then hit the subscribe button. Thanks. So let's get started. I demonstrate the steps on my most recent make that can be familiar if you follow me on Instagram.
The first step is to determine and mark the placement of your buttonholes. If you are totally new to this, it's good to examine a button-up garment that you already own first, but usually the distance between buttons coming up to between 7 and 9 centimeters or between 3 and 4 inches. After you determine the placement that you are satisfied with, measure your button and add at least half centimeter or 1/5 of an inch to the size of your button to determine the size of your buttonhole, because this extra space will be eaten up by the sewing and the threads. So by the time you open up your buttonhole, the button will fit your hole snugly. For the marking, I draw a line with a water erasable pen on the middle of my button placket, and this line is the length of the buttonhole that I want, which was the button plus half centimeter, as I said before. And then I draw a small, like half centimeter long horizontal line on the beginning and the top of the buttonhole to determine a bit like how wide of a buttonhole I want. Now, if you have everything marked, let's head over to the sewing machine. If you have a dedicated buttonhole sewing program on your machine, the very first thing you have to do is to check the manual and what the manual says about using this setting. For me, first I have to put on the buttonhole sewing foot. The buttonhole sewing program on my machine looks like this. I have 3 settings for the program. The AC one makes the bottom and the top of the buttonhole, the B one makes the left side, and the D one makes the right side. I always have to set the stitch length between F and 1. I'm usually closer to F. This means like how dense your stitches will be on the left side of your buttonhole. And this other stuff here that you can adjust with a screwdriver is the stitch length of the right side of your buttonhole. So if you're not satisfied with the density of the right side of your buttonhole, you can adjust it here. I always start at the bottom of my buttonhole, then I switch to program B, which is the left side of the button moving upwards, and then I change back to the AC function, which will make the top of the buttonhole, and then I switch to the right D program that does the right leg of the buttonhole, and I switch back a little bit to the A program to make a few stitches. This will hold the buttonholes and nice and tightly. So I will place the bottom mark of my buttonhole to the mark on my sewing foot. I sew at least 10 stitches with the A program at the beginning of my buttonhole, and I always make the buttonholes with the biggest stitch width available on my machine, because it will end up pretty narrow even that way. After I'm satisfied with the bottom part, I switch to program B, which will do the left side of the buttonhole. I always switch programs when my needle is at the highest position. It's just like with normal stitches. It may be that the foot gets stuck a little bit. I sometimes have to push it to make it move again. I think it's okay with this program, but it's usually not advisable to move your fabric under the feet, so I'm not sure, but my machine is still alright. Then I switch back to program C, and making the top of the buttonhole, I sew at least 10 stitches here too. Then move back to program D, which will be the right side of the buttonhole. And at the end, I make a few more stitches with program E, so this way I can secure the thread from the beginning of the buttonhole. As you can see, the left side of my buttonhole is a bit too loose, so I will adjust the stitch length to a bit more further close to F, which will make it denser, and I will make another buttonhole to demonstrate this. So first program E for the bottom, then program B for the left side, then program C for the top, and then program D for coming back to the beginning, and a few from program E again for securing the buttonhole. As you can see, the density of the left side is much better now. Now, if you don't have a buttonhole sewing program, you can still make buttonholes on your household machine. For that, you need to use the zigzag stitch of your sewing machine, which is program 3 for my machine. I move the stitch length to close to F again, because I want my stitches to be really dense to prevent the material from fraying after I cut it open. Then I switch the stitch width around 2. You can experiment with this and all the settings to see what works for you. And then I place my buttonhole marking with my under my zigzag foot. I'm starting again with the bottom of my buttonhole. I will basically go around the buttonhole with this zigzag stitch. I won't change between sides. I'm just going all around with the stitch. So I'm starting at the bottom. I make it to the width I want it for the buttonhole. Then with my needle in the fabric, I lift the sewing foot and turn my material 90 degrees. Then I put the foot back and continue my zigzag stitches. And I basically do this all around the buttonhole until I get back to the base. And here I will go over the beginning of my buttonhole and then make some back stitches to secure it like I would do with any other stitching. It's not gonna look as neat as with a buttonhole sewing program, obviously. So after doing the buttonholes, the final step for them is to open them up so the button can actually go through them. My foolproof method for this is to push a pin through the beginning and end of your buttonhole right before the stitches, and this is to prevent your seam ripper from ripping through the threads and destroying your buttonhole. So I will push through these pins through the fabric and above the buttonhole, and then I push my seam ripper to the center of my buttonhole and basically rip the material apart until each pin to the top and to the bottom. As you can see, the pin is really working in stopping the seam ripper before reaching any crucial threads that if I cut, my buttonhole would be destroyed. Okay, next for the buttons. First, we have to mark the place of the buttons on the opposite button placket on our garment. So we will overlap the two sides and then just mark. When you basically marked the place of the buttons, you can take away the buttonhole layer and you can make sure that all your markings should be at the center of your other button placket too. And I usually make a cross of about 1 centimeter. I place my button on top of this mark and I make sure that through all the holes I see a line, because if this is all true, then the center of the button should be at the center of the mark. Then I tape the button down with at least 2 stripes of tape. I use a simple painter's tape for this, but you can use scotch or anything, but make sure that your tape is not damaging your fabric, like it doesn't leave residue and stuff, because you don't want to ruin your fabric. So tape down your button at least on 2 sides to prevent it from moving. Of course, if you have a button sewing foot, then you can use that and corresponding program according to your machine manual, but I don't have that, so I'm using my normal zigzag sewing foot and the zigzag stitch. So as I said, we will use the zigzag stitch program of our machine. The main point is to set your stitch length to 0, because this way the sewing machine will sew in place, it won't move anywhere, and this is how you can sew inside the buttonholes several times. So I place my button with 1 pair of holes under the zigzag foot. I make sure that the right hole is just under the starting point of my zigzag stitch, and then I move the needle manually to determine which width I need for the zigzag stitch to reach the other buttonhole. So I'm adjusting the stitch width until I'm satisfied with the placement of the needle. please really make sure that your needle is not in danger of hitting any part of the button, because it can lead to the breaking of your needle, which is very dangerous. So really make sure that you're hitting the holes head on. And then you can start pushing the pedal and sewing some stitches into your button. Usually sew at least 10 stitches to feel that it's secure. And then I always finish at the right side of my machine and with the needle at the highest point, as with any stitch. I take out the button and cut the thread with a longer tail, because at the end I will tie the thread ends together and do a double knot on the upper side and the downside too. And then I do this whole thing to the other direction of the buttons, so for the other pair of holes. And after I do this, I tie them up and cut all the thread. I remove the tape and my button is all ready to use. This can still seem like a lot of time for making the buttonholes and buttons, but it's still much faster and neater than doing it all by hand. So I really recommend using this technique. Thank you for watching my video so far, and I hope you found it somewhat useful. If you have any other techniques or tips for sewing on buttonholes or buttons, then please share it in the comment section. If you like my video, please support me with hitting the like button, and I will see you in my next video. I was Audrey from The Lazy Arts. Bye!